Hi again, everyone. Well, we thought in this little video we'd talk about narrowboat shells, because there's a massive variation in shells, huge variation depending where the boat is built, and the skill of a fabricator. And I'll talk about it later, and I'll show you some things which I think are important if you want to get a decent shell. We've had 3 new shells built from what I call various levels of boat builders or boat fitters, depending. You know, a boat fitter normally gets a shell from a shell builder, and the fit out is done by them. But we've always liked using what I call the boat builder who does everything from beginning to end, from the flat plate to the last screw in the interior and the paintwork. But this is to look at a shell what was built by, well, it's our shell, built by Steve Hudson, and it's a different way of, you know, he fitted his shells and did shells different than a lot of other builders. And I'll put a list of the builders I like who do bespoke boats and that later at the end of this little video. But we've come across, and most of it's photographs, so apologies for this, but I'll try to explain the things about narrowboat shells, because that's important. It's not just looking at it, you've got to know a little bit about it as well. And we'll go through it, and it shows you the process what we went through having our shell built. Now various builders do it in different ways, and the skills of fabricators play a part, and materials they want to use, the quality of the steel, the thickness of the steel. I'll try to explain some of that as well, and it'll give you a bit of an idea. So we'll go with this one. It's very rare, this, by the way, very rare, because you didn't get access to it wasn't a mass access to the shell build. It was protected quite, and rightly so, quite religiously by Steve. There's many people wanted to do copies, which he wouldn't let people do that. We had, and when I was being built, we came across people from other companies looking how he did his narrowboat shell, and Steve got to know these people and wouldn't let them go near it, and quite rightly so, because it was his shape was unique and protected, and quite different than most other shells you see. So I'll get on with it, and I hope you like seeing something a little bit different, and if I forgot anything I'll come back later. If not, I'll see you in the next vlog. Okay, see y'all. Well, all narrowboat building starts somewhere, and originally when this was Steve Hudson's, that was the office where all the negotiating went on to discuss what our requirements were, and that was quite intense, but we did get everything we wanted at the end. I'll just move on to something else now. Now here is where all the boats what we used to have were built in there from scratch, from the pieces of metal to what we have now as the full shell. Now, as it's changed to Norton Cairns, there's a lot of restoration of old boats going on, and that continues now. But yes, just down there, as you're looking directly down there, that was where our boat was born. Well, after all your discussions what you have with your preferred builder, fitter, or just shell builder and that, it all comes down to the base plate. Whatever shape that base plate is determines the shape of your boat and how it's going to perform in the water. And also you have to look at the steel thickness. Now they can vary tremendously on new and old boats, but if you're having a new shell built, the standards are 1064 or 10654 in millimetres, and the diagram, if you pause on it, will let you see how that comes together. And the other thing is, look at the quality of the steel, whether it's an old shell or a new shell, because poor quality steel just stores up trouble for you in the future. So preferably make certain you know what it is. That's important. The British standard is BS 43A, and preferably make it British steel as well. And that's very important. Even on a second-hand boat, try to find out what your steel is, because you can get air pockets in poor steel, besides the fact that it corrodes quite quick. And you could have a 10mm base plate and you could have a 5mm air pocket in there somewhere, so it would corrode and give you the chance of potential leaks or needing overplating a lot quicker. So that is a very important part when you're looking at steel, and we'll talk a bit more about that shortly. As we move on now, we're just looking at something what Steve did with his boats, and it involved keeping the engine bay dry without any water coming over into the engine, which cruiser style and semi-trad are subject to. But the water, if you look at those what look like twisty pipes, the water from outside goes down them pipes and goes directly back into the weed hatch and then goes directly back into the water, and you never get any form of dampness at all, or rain or anything coming into the engine bay area, so it's always bone dry, which is brilliant. When shaping your narrowboat, these struts across, or these angle irons, are just tack welded on to keep the shape exactly as the builder needs it to be, and they are taken off when the shell structure is coming to completion. These are further angle iron supports to keep the structure solid, but you'll also notice that there is some small vents in the steelwork, or small holes, because Steve never put vents in doors. This is a far more intricate way of putting ventilation in, but it's also why you pay that little bit more for the shell. As we move on now, we're seeing the shell taking shape, but this shell of ours, we did ask for some quite complicated requirements, and one of them was the actual steel thickness. Now we've talked about the steel being either 1064 or 10654 on narrowboats. Well, ours was quite thick and really engineered well, and the size we specified was 15mm base plate, 8mm hull sides, 5mm cabin sides, and the 4mm roof. So that is a really hefty and heavy bit of steel, but it didn't need much ballast, that's for certain. One of the most important parts of a narrowboat is the narrowboat swim, and that's the bottom piece what comes to a point at the back. If that's not long enough, you can get cavitation noises and the boat doesn't move along as nice. So having a long swim is very important, and you can see underneath where the steelwork is, where it comes in. And on Steve's boats, it was running at about, I think it was just over 18 feet, and that's why they glide through the water so easily, and it's a big difference on steelwork. Steve fitted boats either with modern engines or traditional, and ours is a modern engine, and it sits in the back and just sits where the swim is, where you can see the swim coming in. But his traditional engines are fitted in the middle of the boat, and you may be able to see one of them sometime during 2018. This is the stern of the boat, and you can see the swim at the bottom come to a point. That's where the propeller goes. Also, Steve did a self-centering swan neck at the back of the boat as well, which is completely different than most narrowboat builders. So again, that was something slightly different. And this is the front of the boat, you know, in the bow of the boat, and this is the fancy Joshua style bow, which Steve Hudson boats are famous for, and these look very, very special. There's no other words for it. They're absolutely superb, and there's nothing else I can say. Now, the other thing as well about steel is what type of steel do you get, and the best type for making certain you've got a limited chance of ripples in the steelwork when you look at the cabin side, particularly when it's gloss painted, because that's when you see it. It can look perfect when it's just in primer, you know, when it's got a matte finish, but it's when the gloss goes on you then see it. You use decoiled steel. Now again, I will try to explain. The decoiled steel comes in like, it looks like a big circular drum of steel. The best part is the outside of it, the outside pieces. For when it unwraps, there's a fair less chance of ripples. But some builders, because it's cheaper, use the very tight, smaller parts in the middle. And that has got a fair more chance of having ripples in the steel when it's poured out. Now, the other thing about narrowboat shells is the length of time it takes to build. Now, some companies, in 3 or 4 weeks, the shell's finished. But it's not like that with everybody. For example, our shell took the best part of 3 months, or just over 3 months, to be completed. But, like I say, it did have a lot of intricate bits and pieces. From having a full length rubbing strake at the top of the gunnel, which I'll try to explain later, to having all the rivets, and then to having all the steelwork cut out, all the holes cut out, and everything bent in the intricate shapes. And with it being a lot thicker than the normal as well, it also took that little bit longer. But it didn't finish there, and I'll show you that as well, hopefully in the next few pictures. No other boat builder uses as much steel as what Steve Hudson did in a build, and that was very important to us, and it is with a lot of his customers. The amount of angle iron and like the steel boxing inside is absolutely unbelievable. There's nobody goes near to it, and this is why these shells are so special and so strong, and why they're so sought after by people. The amount of work what goes into them just is mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. The amount of, you know, supports on the roof are absolutely incredible. No other boat builder has a roof what's supported as much, has got much strengtheners in as that. It's absolutely amazing. You're just stunned when you look inside one, and you look inside of some other boat builder shells. We did the works. We went round to boat place after boat place, looking at what was involved, and I've got to be honest, there was no comparison. Steve Hudson was really proud of his British built boats. Absolutely. He was a very patriotic person, and as you can see, he always had his flag up at the back, particularly on the open days, because he was so proud of what he actually made. Now we're at the bow of the boat now, and this is where everything is coming together, and we've got our vents there now, all with the nice covers on top, very traditional. and we've had our diesel tank put in place, and then on the other side is where our bow thruster batteries are, and we can also store a bit of things, you know, put some touch-up paints and that in. But at this point it was coming together very, very nicely, and we was looking now to move on to what I call some of the decorative parts on the boat, which I really like, and I think it sets it off well. And these are the rivets. They're not real rivets, but they really set the boat off. So they're all put on in a traditional way in the right positions, because that's the other thing. They have to be in the right positions, or they can look completely wrong. But that's our rivets, and when you look from the front you can see the shape taking effect now. And we love this position, this steel work, you know, and it's at this point, and you can see all the rubbing strakes and the rivets and all of it gleaming, ready for the next stage. But it's not all finished yet when you think it's up to there. You know, we've got if you look at the bottom, there looks like a big hole. That's the bow thruster. We have quite a powerful bow thruster made by Nobles, and that's fitted in, and that's all like corrosion proofed as well, so it looks you know, so it's protected. But as you look at that now, before the paint work, you can see the skill involved. We've got lots of rubbing strakes to protect it. You know, sometimes some boat builders will put one on or two, but we've got quite a few there, and that again adds to the you know, the nice looking bow. And what you're looking at here, Steve Hudson boats actually had a keelson. The only narrowboats with a keelson, and he also wax oiled all his base plates. You know, didn't just put the engineering brick on. He wax oiled it and put a membrane down as well for total protection. And as you can see now, when you're looking down this, it looks very neat and tidy and all ready. We've got all the welds done. We've got positions left and right at low level to put pipes and that. They also go under something called the gunnels, but that is done. When it went outside, you could actually see the recess panels, what went on at the back, because Steve always fitted his boats with them in water, because he said that's when everything, you know, there was not much temperature variation, and I can understand that. And also we have here is our large hatch top. You know, we asked for this large hatch, and there's also other little intricate bits and pieces, bits of you know, grooving out of things to make it look more authentic. But at this stage it's getting ready to be fitted out, and it's all in its primer, which comes off again afterwards when it's fitted out and gets done again. Or as in our case, we had everything grit blasted, and then it had 2-pack epoxy on the hull, and then it was painted in a separate paint bay, which is very, very important. If you chose to have your narrowboat painted and you want a nice mirror finish, similar to what you're looking at now, what you've got to make certain of is that the room where it's painted is dedicated for painting only, because you get little particles in it if it's in a room where other work's being done. And when they sand down each coat, you'll still have them little bits and pieces of dust in that paintwork. It may be smooth, but it'll definitely be in the paintwork all the time, and then you run the risk of little bits flaking off down the line. So always make certain your paint is done in a dedicated paint room. Now this is where we had our boat painted originally, and in this paint area there's fans and that as well, because you've got to have airflow changes as well for health and safety. And you've got a choice of spray or hand painting. Now we chose to have ours spray painted in 2-pack paint, and our main reason is, one, it really gives a really good glossy finish, and 2, it's quite hard as well. Now hand paints, which we have had previously, they are known to, they can look really nice, but they are known to really fade a lot quicker than 2-pack paint. So that's the reason we did what we did. Thanks very much for watching that and taking the time to go through it. I know it was in, a lot of it was in photos, but that's all we've got. But I hope you found it interesting, because it is very important for people, particularly ones who buy new shells, to understand what's involved with the shell, because there's so many variations. Now, over the years, so I've seen now, I think it's over 10 years now, Narrowboat shells had something, or have something on it called a HIN number, or it's called the old identification number, and that's somewhere on the hull. And I think it's been superseded by CIN now, which is the craft identification number, and that's on the newest shells. That, I don't know how many years ago, but it's been going a fair bit now, and that's important that you know something like that, especially when you know you're investing in buying a boat. It's your ID number, your unique ID number. So you get your shell. Remember, and I'll say this to anybody, make certain that whatever shell you buy is decent, because that's your shape then. Whatever your shell is, that's your shape. Now, I know you can stretch the boats. That's something I might go into in the future about boat stretching, but for now, your shell is the shape you've got and you're stuck with that. So it's important. The interior can always be changed. So if you're not happy with something, it can be changed. But your shell is what you've got all the time. So don't buy an inferior shell or a very old shell and spend a fortune doing it up inside, because it's a complete false economy, and that's a genuine thing what I'm saying there. Now the other thing is, and this has changed now over the years, because we've done this for years and years and years, it was just putting bitumen blacking on the hull, the bottom of the boat. You know, clean it down, spray it down, and just do it. And even then, it can be done differently. If you roller it, it's very, very thin and doesn't last 5 minutes. So at least brush it on and get a thick coat on. But times are changing, because it's a false economy to have blacking. Just have bitumen on, because it only lasts a couple of years, and you've got to take it out again and pay for all that. So I would recommend anybody to have 2-pack epoxy now. It's got to be grit blasted to get rid of all the mill scale and that, and any old bitumen if you're having it done, you know, years ahead of the, you know, when the boat's been built and you want to take off the bitumen. It's got to be grit blasted. Now that's something else. A good friend of ours had a lovely boat. It's going back probably 7 or 8 years this will be. And he had a lovely boat built, and he had it painted, but when he was in the arm where we're used to moor, part of his paint was cracked and slid off at the front on the bow, and that's the mill scale, because that's what's, if it's not grit blasted, that's what you have on boats, mill scale, and it just came off. So we had a patch of about 18 inch by 4 inch what just fell off, and he was devastated. So we said from that day we'd have our boat grit blasted before any paint goes on. Now our choice now is always 2-pack epoxy, but also what we had as well, we had a zinc phosphate put on first and then the 2-pack epoxy over it, so it's super protected, and we should get 7-8 years easily out of it, which gives us a lot of, you know, gives us a lot of scope for doing what we want to do, and that's, we want to cruise, you know, we like cruising around, not just being moored up and stuff like that. We like cruising around. So I think that's about it. Now, just before we finish, those who have been watching this now, because I think I've said it a few times, our boat builder Steve Hudson died at a very young age. He was only in his mid-50s, and he passed away, which was very, very sad. And each year we still have a Hudson gathering, at the boatyard where we all had our boat built, and there'll be one in 2018 which I'll be doing a vlog on again. But what I'm putting next is a list of what our favourite, not just me, Bernadette's as well, favourite boat builders currently. Obviously Steve would be in there as well, but I'll put the list and you can have a look at it. And it's always worth seeing an alternative to some of the other builders what are available, and they're very traditional as well, these people. Some of them, CTS, Norton Keynes, Brinklow, they'll renovate and build replicas as well, and they're really good companies, so have a look at them. So you've had a look, and I do recommend you having a look at going on the sites and seeing what they look like, and they're all easy enough to visit. There's no problem with any of them. They're all good groups of people. So that's another one done. The next one, no idea. I don't know what I'm going to put up next. I've got various things, so I'll just see what I've got, and I'll see you in the not too distant future. But much appreciated again for watching. Me and Bernadette love doing stuff like this. We just love getting it out there and people watching, and it's great. So thanks again, and we'll see you all soon. Ta-ra!